Imagine a life where every single move you make is watched by millions, where your biggest triumphs are celebrated on international television, but your darkest, most agonizing moments are dissected by ruthless tabloids and hungry crowds. Imagine being at the absolute pinnacle of fame, hailed as a hero, only to be dragged into a courtroom, facing the blinding flash of cameras, waiting to hear if you will be thrown into a prison cell. The year is 2015. The cold autumn wind sweeps through the streets of Istanbul, but inside the 19th criminal court, the air is suffocating. Standing before the judge is Murat Yıldırım. If you watch television at any point in the last decade, you know his face. He is the golden boy of Turkish drama, the impossibly handsome, fiercely talented leading man who captured the hearts of audiences across the Middle East, Europe, and Latin America. But today, he isn't playing a hero. Today, he is a defendant facing a devastating charge: drug possession. When the judge's gavel finally slams down, sentencing him to 10 months in prison, a shockwave ripples through the entertainment industry. The public is stunned. Audiences who had spent years tracking his every success, analyzing his roles and idolizing his characters, are suddenly left watching the spectacular collapse of an icon. In the eyes of the media, his legendary career was officially dead. But what the cameras didn't capture that day in the courtroom was that this humiliating scandal was only a fraction of his suffering. This public downfall was merely the prelude to a much darker, agonizing journey. Waiting for him in the shadows was a deeply painful divorce, a desperate escape from his own homeland, and a catastrophic series of personal tragedies that would bring him to his knees. The loss of not one, not two, but 5 unborn children. To understand how a man survives a descent into such a terrifying abyss, and how he somehow engineers one of the greatest, most miraculous comebacks in television history, we have to go back to the very beginning. We have to look at the boy before the fame. Born in the spring of 1979 in Konya, a city steeped in profound history and spiritual tradition, Murat was a child of complex origins. His family was a beautiful, intricate mosaic of the region's history. His father, a literature teacher originally from the culturally rich city of Mardin, spoke both Turkish and Kurdish fluently. His mother, a translator of Arab descent, filled their home with the sounds of the Arabic language. Yet, despite being surrounded by this linguistic richness, young Murat absorbed the quiet discipline of his household. He was not a loud, theatrical child destined for the stage. He was analytical, sharp, and deeply introverted. Guided by his father's strict expectations and his own undeniable brilliance with numbers, Murat's path seemed set in stone. He was going to be an engineer. He moved to the chaotic, vibrant heart of Istanbul to study mechanical engineering at the prestigious Yıldız Technical University. For years, his life was dictated by complex mathematical equations, physics, and the cold, hard logic of machinery. But Istanbul has a way of changing people. Beneath the surface of his academic life, a different kind of heartbeat was beginning to thump. It started innocently enough: a university music band, a drum set. The rhythmic crash of cymbals offered an escape from the rigidity of engineering. And then, one evening, he stepped into the university theater. The moment the harsh stage lights hit his face and he felt the silent, heavy anticipation of an audience waiting in the dark, the math genius vanished. The mechanical engineer was dead. The actor was born. His transition to the screen was not an overnight miracle, but when it happened, it was an explosion. After a few minor roles, 2006 became the year everything changed. He landed the lead in the massive hit series Fortuna, or The Storm. But this show didn't just give him immense fame, it gave him what he thought was the love of his life. He fell dangerously in love with his co-star, Burçin Terzioglu. To the millions of fans watching at home, their romance was the ultimate fairy tale, a love story bleeding from the television screen into real life. They married in 2008 in a dazzling ceremony, but as the paparazzi snapped photos of their smiling faces, a terrifying storm was brewing behind closed doors. The reality of their marriage was a psychological war zone. Murat's mother fiercely and openly rejected Burçin. She refused to accept her as a daughter-in-law, creating an unbearable, suffocating tension inside the family home. Burçin would often leave the house in tears, while Murat found himself trapped in an impossible crossfire between the woman who gave him life and the woman he chose to spend it with. Combine this intense family toxicity with 6 grueling, agonizing years of failing to conceive a child, and the fairy tale began to rot. The passion turned to resentment, the love turned to ashes, and in 2014, the marriage violently collapsed in a highly publicized, bitter divorce. Broken, exhausted, and desperately trying to heal, Murat threw himself into his work. But fate is a cruel writer. Just as the dust of his divorce was beginning to settle, October 2015 arrived, bringing the darkest days of his life. A massive, sweeping police raid targeted Turkey's most elite celebrities in a brutal crackdown on narcotics. Without warning, Murat was swept up in the chaos. The media descended like vultures. Every rumor, every whisper, every piece of gossip was weaponized against him. Audiences who once defended him were now questioning his character. Murat stood firm, immediately demanding and passing 5 separate medical tests, all proving his blood was completely clean. But in the ruthless arena of public opinion and an unforgiving justice system, innocence isn't always enough. Based on mere suspicion and association, the court handed down the devastating 10-month sentence. Because he had no prior criminal record, the judge suspended the physical jail time. He wouldn't sit behind iron bars, but he was trapped in a prison of a different kind. The suffocating weight of being labeled a criminal, the endless whispers in the streets, the destruction of his pristine reputation, it was too much. To survive, Murat did the only thing a hunted man can do. He ran. He left Turkey behind, fleeing to the cold, rainy, and most importantly, anonymous streets of London. He was a broken man looking for a place to hide. But the universe has a strange sense of timing. In a quiet, unassuming London cafe, amidst the gray weather and his own internal depression, he locked eyes with a woman who would entirely rewrite his destiny. Her name was Iman El-Bani, a breathtakingly beautiful Moroccan woman, a former Miss Arab World, and a respected actress in her own right. She had no idea about the depth of his fame or the darkness of his recent scandals. She just saw a man. The connection between them was not just immediate, it was magnetic, electric, and undeniable. Despite a language barrier that forced them to communicate through broken words and deep, soulful glances, Murat knew in his bones that this woman was his savior. Murat is a man who operates on passion, and when he decided to marry Iman, he wanted to give her a story the world would never forget. He didn't just ask her father for permission. Utilizing his immense cultural influence, Murat reached out to the absolute highest power in the country. In a moment that sounds like pure Hollywood fiction, the president of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, initiated a FaceTime call to Iman's father in Morocco, officially asking for her hand in marriage on Murat's behalf. It was a gesture of unprecedented respect and scale. They celebrated with 2 monumental weddings, merging Turkish and Moroccan traditions in an explosion of joy. Finally, the darkness seemed to be over. They were blissfully happy, and soon Iman was pregnant. Murat was finally going to be a father. The void in his heart was about to be filled. And then, the heartbeat stopped. The loss of their first child was a devastating, paralyzing blow, but they clung to each other, wiping their tears, and tried again. And then the nightmare repeated. The second pregnancy ended in tragedy, then the third, then the fourth, then the fifth. 5 times. 5 times they walked into pristine hospital rooms holding their breath, praying for a miracle, and 5 times they walked out into the cold air, completely hollowed out, their souls crushed under the weight of an unimaginable grief. The psychological toll of losing 5 unborn children is a trauma that shatters the strongest of minds. But the cruelty of the world did not stop at the hospital doors. As rumors of their struggles leaked out, the dark side of internet fandom reared its ugly head. Vicious online trolls and toxic tabloids began to ruthlessly attack Iman, blaming her body, mocking her pain, and demanding that Murat leave her. For a man who usually maintained a stoic, dignified silence, this was the breaking point. The quiet, analytical boy from Konya erupted into a fierce protector. He shattered his public silence with a blistering, furious statement that shook social media. "This woman you are insulting," he wrote, his words dripping with venom for the haters and absolute devotion for his wife, "has lost 5 children from me. Stop your abuse." He made it violently clear he would burn his entire career to the ground before he let anyone disrespect the woman who held his shattered heart together. For 6 long, agonizing years, Murat and Iman walked through hell. They endured grueling medical treatments in the United States, endless nights of crying, and the heavy, suffocating silence of an empty nursery. They had every reason to give up, every reason to accept that they were cursed. But they refused to surrender. In October 2022, after a lifetime of waiting, the universe finally bowed to their unbreakable resilience. In a hospital room far from the flashing cameras of Istanbul, a cry broke the silence. A perfectly healthy, beautiful baby girl named Mirai was born. When Murat held his daughter for the very first time, the tears that fell were no longer tears of grief. They were tears of pure, unadulterated victory. He wasn't a superstar in that moment. He wasn't the man who survived a media assassination. He was just a father, looking at the miracle he had fought through hell to meet. And as if fueled by the sheer power of this personal triumph, his professional life exploded into a massive renaissance. He didn't just return to television, he conquered it. Starring in massive adrenaline-fueled blockbusters like Ramo and The Shadow Team, and the deeply psychological The Secret Garden, Murat reclaimed his throne. But this time, he wasn't just a popular actor. He was a man with profound depth, an actor whose eyes carried the weight of real tragedy, real loss, and real survival. The story of Murat Yıldırım is not just a biography of an actor. It is a raw, unflinching testament to the human spirit. It proves that all the fame, money, and adoration in the world cannot protect you from the brutal, unpredictable cruelty of life. But more importantly, it proves that if you can withstand the storm, if you can survive the false accusations, the public humiliation, and the darkest, most terrifying nights of the soul without losing your capacity to love, you just might live long enough to hold your greatest miracle in your arms.